She was left at the stage stop in tears. The cowboy rode up and said, "No more waiting." A few wooden benches sat near a weathered building where travelers usually rested, and a small water trough held what little water had been brought from a nearby stream. The stage stop was quiet, save for the occasional lowing of cattle in the distance and the soft wind that whispered across the plains. Among the scattered travelers, a young woman named Anna stood near the edge of the stage stop, holding her small bundle tightly against her chest. Her hands trembled slightly as she glanced up the dusty road, watching for the stagecoach that was supposed to arrive hours ago. Anna was a slender young woman, with chestnut hair that had escaped the neat braid her mother had insisted on that morning. Dust had settled in her hair and on her simple dress, giving her a worn look, but her eyes were bright and full of life. Yet now, as she waited alone, they shimmered with unshed tears. She had been traveling for days from a small town miles away, leaving behind the familiar warmth of home for reasons she barely understood herself. Life had become a series of sudden decisions, unexpected hardships, and lonely days, and now, standing at the edge of the vast plains, she felt the weight of every choice pressing down on her. The stage stop itself was small, almost forgotten by the world, but it was meant to be a place of connection. Travelers came and went, sharing stories, exchanging goods, and sometimes simply offering a kind word or a moment of companionship. Today, however, the place felt empty. The benches were mostly unoccupied, and the few people who lingered near the building spoke in low tones, focused on their own journeys. Anna felt the emptiness more acutely than anyone else. She had hoped that by now the stagecoach would have arrived, carrying her away from the confusion and loneliness that had plagued her journey. Hours passed slowly. The sun dipped lower, turning the sky a deeper shade of red, and Anna's hope began to waver. She had tried to distract herself with small tasks, straightening her bundle, brushing off dust, and even humming a quiet tune. But each effort was met with the relentless silence of the empty road. Her mind wandered to thoughts of what could go wrong. What would happen if the stagecoach never came, and whether she had made a mistake in setting out on this journey alone. The fear of being stranded, of facing the unknown without any help, crept over her like a shadow. Just as she tried to push the worry aside, the sound of distant wheels creaking over the dry ground reached her ears. Her heart leaped. She straightened immediately, gripping her bundle tightly. Dust rose in the distance, and she squinted, trying to make out the shape of the approaching stagecoach. It was coming, but something about its movement made her uneasy. The horses seemed restless, and the driver's posture looked tense. As the stagecoach drew closer, Anna's pulse quickened with both hope and apprehension. She was finally going to leave the stage stop, leave behind the anxiety of waiting, and continue her journey toward whatever lay ahead. But when the stagecoach reached the stop, the moment of relief was short-lived. The driver, a tall man with a weathered face and tired eyes, shook his head as he spoke. "I'm sorry, miss," he said, his voice low but firm. "You can't board this stage. We're running behind and there's no room for passengers today." She opened her mouth trying to speak, but no sound came out. Her heart sank and her knees felt weak. She had imagined this moment countless times, picturing herself climbing onto the stagecoach, waving goodbye to the stage stop, and heading toward a new chapter of her life. But now, standing on the dusty ground, she realized that her plans had been shattered in an instant. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, and she could feel them sliding down her cheeks before she even realized it. She wanted to cry out, to plead with the driver, to tell him that she couldn't stay here alone, but the words stuck in her throat. The stagecoach driver merely shook his head again, tightened the reins, and gave a curt nod to his assistant. The horses began to move, their hooves kicking up clouds of dust as the stagecoach rolled away, leaving Anna behind. For a moment, she stood frozen, unable to move as the stagecoach disappeared over the horizon. The sound of its wheels faded, leaving only the quiet of the plains and the soft whisper of the wind. She hugged her bundle closer to her chest, her body trembling with a mixture of cold and despair. She had never felt so alone. The stage stop, which had once seemed like a place of connection, now felt like a vast, empty desert stretching endlessly in every direction. Anna sank to one of the wooden benches, burying her face in her hands. She could hear the faint voices of other travelers nearby, but their words were distant and meaningless. In that moment, all she could think about was how small and fragile she felt, abandoned in a world that seemed indifferent to her presence. She thought of her family, of the life she had left behind, and of the uncertainty that stretched ahead. Every choice she had made to get to this point now seemed pointless, and the tears she had held back for so long finally poured freely. As she cried, her mind began to wander. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, the long days on horseback, the nights spent under the stars, the meals she had eaten in silence, and the countless strangers she had encountered along the way. Each memory was tinged with both hardship and hope, a reminder of her resilience and her desire to keep moving forward despite the obstacles. But now, with the stagecoach gone and no clear path ahead, that hope felt distant, almost unreachable. Hours passed, and the sky darkened into shades of deep purple and blue. The first stars began to appear, twinkling faintly in the night sky. Anna had long since stopped crying, but the emptiness in her chest remained. She had tried to make sense of what had happened, to understand why she had been left behind, but there were no answers. All she could do was sit and wait, hoping that something, or someone, would arrive to offer her a way forward. As the night deepened, a cold wind swept across the plains, rustling the dry grass and sending a shiver through Anna's body. She wrapped her shawl tightly around her shoulders and hugged her bundle closer, trying to keep warm. Her mind raced with thoughts of what might happen if she stayed at the stage stop alone. The fear of wild animals, of thieves, of getting lost in the darkness, all of it pressed down on her, making her feel smaller than ever. Yet, despite the fear, there was a small spark of determination that refused to die out. She knew she had to survive, that she had to find a way to continue her journey, even if the path forward was uncertain. In the quiet of the night, Anna listened carefully, straining to hear any sound that might signal help or the arrival of another traveler. Every creak of the wooden building, every rustle of the grass, made her heart race. She thought about the stagecoach one last time, wondering where it had gone and why she had been left behind. The sense of abandonment weighed heavily on her, but she refused to give in completely to despair. She reminded herself that she was strong, that she had faced challenges before and had always found a way to keep moving. As she sat there, lost in thought, a faint glimmer of hope began to grow in her chest. Maybe she hadn't been forgotten. Maybe there was still someone out there who would come for her. The thought was fragile, like a small flame flickering in the wind, but it was enough to keep her awake, enough to keep her from succumbing entirely to fear and sadness. She held on to that tiny spark, determined to wait just a little longer, to believe that her story was not yet over. The night stretched on, long and quiet, with only the stars and the wind as companions. Anna's tears had dried, but the memory of her disappointment lingered. She knew that the stage stop would not always be this lonely, that help might come when she least expected it. She held on to that thought, letting it steady her, letting it remind her that even in the darkest moments there could be light. And so, beneath the vast expanse of the night sky, Anna remained at the stage stop, her heart heavy but not broken. She had been left behind, abandoned in a moment of despair, yet she had not given up. Somewhere in the distance, beyond the hills and the plains, something was coming, something that might change everything. For now, all she could do was wait, to hold on to hope, and to believe that her journey was far from over. The first light of dawn barely touched the horizon when Anna stirred from her uneasy sleep on the wooden bench. The stars had faded, leaving behind a soft gray sky that promised a day both bright and uncertain. Her body ached from the cold and the discomfort of sitting in one position for hours, but more than the physical pain, It was the lingering worry that gnawed at her heart. She glanced down the dusty road again, hoping against hope that the stagecoach might appear, but the path remained empty. The morning was quiet, almost too quiet, and the vast openness of the plains made her feel smaller than ever. Anna hugged her bundle tightly, as if it were a shield against the loneliness pressing in on her. She tried to make sense of what had happened the day before, why she had been left behind, why the world seemed to move forward without her. Each passing hour had stretched her patience and tested her courage, yet she refused to give up entirely. Somewhere in her heart, a small spark of hope remained, fragile but alive, reminding her that perhaps, just perhaps, she wasn't as alone as she felt. The soft sound of hooves striking the dry earth first caught her attention in the mid-morning. At first she thought it was her imagination, a trick of the wind and the creaking of distant wood, but then she heard it again. This time it was unmistakable. Hooves, steady and purposeful, moving over the dusty ground toward the stage stop. Anna's heart leaped. She stood abruptly, brushing dust from her dress, and squinted into the distance. A figure was approaching, riding a horse with an easy, confident gait. As the rider drew closer, she could see him clearly. He was a tall man, strong and lean, dressed in the rugged clothes of someone accustomed to the trails. A wide-brimmed hat shaded his face, but his presence was unmistakable, calm, composed, and entirely self-assured. There was something in the way he rode, the steady rhythm of his horse, that spoke of experience and reliability. Anna felt a flicker of relief she hadn't known she would feel, mixed with curiosity. Who was this man, and why was he coming here? The cowboy dismounted gracefully, the leather of his boots brushing softly against the wooden planks of the stage stop. He approached her slowly, his eyes scanning her face with a careful attention that made Anna's chest tight. "Anna?" His voice was low, yet strong, carrying across the quiet morning air. Anna blinked, startled. "Yes, I'm Anna." Her voice was small, almost a whisper. She didn't understand how he knew her name, and the uncertainty made her step back instinctively. She clutched her bundle closer, feeling the tension rise in her chest. The cowboy gave a small, reassuring nod. "I've been looking for you," he said gently. "I came as soon as I could. You don't need to wait here any longer." She could only stare, feeling a strange, unexplainable sense of trust in the man before her. His calm demeanor, the steady strength in his posture, and the kindness in his eyes all combined to create a feeling she hadn't felt in days: safety. I don't understand," she managed to say, her voice trembling slightly. "Why are you here? How did you know I was stuck?" The exhaustion, fear, and loneliness of the past hours pressed against her like a heavy weight, and now, standing before this stranger, she felt a strange mixture of relief and skepticism. Could she trust him? Could she allow herself to believe that someone had come just for her, that she wasn't abandoned after all? She hesitated, unsure whether to step forward or retreat further into her solitude. The cowboy seemed to sense her uncertainty. "You've had a long, hard journey," he said softly. "I won't take you anywhere you don't want to go, but I can help. You don't have to face this alone anymore." For the first time in hours, maybe even days, she felt a glimmer of hope. She looked at the horse beside him, strong and calm, and then back at the cowboy, whose presence seemed to promise stability and safety. Slowly, cautiously, she nodded. "Okay," she said. I'll go with you." He gestured toward the horse, allowing her to climb onto it behind him. It was a strange sensation, the warmth and steady rhythm of the animal beneath her, but also comforting. She could feel herself leaning into the cowboy's presence, drawing courage from the quiet assurance he radiated. As they began to ride, the vast plains stretched before them, endless and full of possibility, and Anna felt a cautious optimism growing in her heart. As they traveled together, the cowboy introduced himself properly. "My name's Luke," he said. "I've been traveling these routes for years. I know the roads, the dangers, and the people you might meet along the way." The wind carried the scent of dust, wildflowers, and the open plains, and for the first time in days she felt herself breathe more freely. As the morning passed into afternoon, their conversation grew easier. Luke spoke of life on the trails, the long days, the dangers of sudden storms, the occasional encounters with strangers both kind and unkind. Anna began to open up as well, sharing stories of her family, the struggles she had faced, and the moments of loneliness that had brought her to this stage stop. Luke listened without judgment, offering gentle encouragement and understanding, and in doing so, he helped Anna begin to shed the layers of fear and doubt that had accumulated over the past hours. At one point, they had to cross a narrow, winding path near a river. The current was swift and the banks were slick with mud. Anna's heart raced as the horse carefully navigated the crossing, Luke's hand steady on the reins. "It's okay," he said softly, sensing her fear. "You're safe. Just trust the horse and me. You're stronger than you think." She realized that she had been so focused on her fear of being alone that she hadn't allowed herself to believe in the possibility of help, of companionship, or of hope. And now, riding beside Luke, she felt those possibilities begin to open before her like the endless horizon. As the sun began its slow descent, casting golden light across the plains, Luke and Anna reached a small rise that allowed them to see the town in the distance. The buildings were tiny against the vast landscape, but their presence was a promise of safety, warmth, and human connection. Anna's heart swelled with relief and anticipation. She had been left behind, abandoned at the stage stop, but now she was moving forward, guided by someone who genuinely cared for her well-being. Luke noticed the change in her expression and said quietly, "We'll reach town soon. You won't have to wait alone anymore." The journey had been difficult, but she had not faced it entirely alone. For the first time since arriving at the stage stop, she felt the weight of fear lift, replaced by a cautious optimism for the days ahead. The bond between them, though still new, was undeniable. Luke had not only arrived when she needed help the most, but he had also given her the space to regain her strength, to speak her fears aloud, and to find courage within herself. The journey, once frightening and uncertain, had become a shared experience, one that reminded Anna of the power of trust, human connection, and the kindness of those willing to extend a hand in times of need. As the town drew closer and the lights of evening began to glow, Anna felt a renewed sense of purpose. The stage stop, once a place of despair, was now a memory of resilience. Luke's presence was a reminder that even in the most uncertain moments, there was hope, there were allies, and there was the promise of a brighter path ahead. The town lay ahead, small and quiet under the soft evening sky, but Anna and Luke did not rush. They knew that a journey was more than just reaching a destination. It was about each moment along the way, about the trust, the care, and the lessons found between the miles. Anna felt a strange comfort in the rhythm of the horse beneath her and in the steady presence of Luke beside her. It was as if the worries of the world were softened by the warmth of companionship, and for the first time in days, she allowed herself to breathe without fear. As they rode along the winding path, the conversation between them deepened. Anna found herself speaking more freely, sharing stories she had kept close to her heart. She spoke of her childhood in a small village, the laughter of her siblings, and the quiet nights when she would gaze at the stars, wondering what lay beyond the fields that bordered her home. Luke listened with careful attention, occasionally nodding or offering a gentle word of encouragement. There was no rush, no judgment, just the steady, reassuring presence of someone who understood that every story, every fear, and every hope deserved to be heard. "I always thought I would stay in my village forever," Anna said softly, her voice almost lost in the wind. "But life doesn't work that way. Things change, people leave, and sometimes we are forced to leave behind what we love most." She realized that the journey wasn't just about escaping her past or reaching the next town. It was about learning, growing, and discovering strength she had never known she possessed. The fear she had felt at the stage stop, the loneliness that had weighed heavily on her heart, now seemed like distant shadows compared to the light that Luke's presence had brought into her life. As they continued, the terrain became rougher, the path winding through rocky hills and patches of tall grass. The horse navigated the uneven ground with careful steps, and Luke guided Anna with patience and care. At one point, they came to a narrow ledge overlooking a deep ravine. The wind whipped around them, carrying dust and the faint scent of wildflowers. Anna's heart raced as she clutched the reins tightly, unsure if she could trust the horse to keep steady. "It's okay," Luke said softly, his voice calm and steady. "I've got you. Just focus on the horse and trust yourself." The touch was small, almost fleeting, but it carried reassurance that made her chest swell with a quiet courage. She focused on the horse, following Luke's lead, and felt the animal's steady steps guide them safely across the ledge. When they reached solid ground again, a small smile formed on her lips. "Thank you," she whispered. Luke nodded, a faint smile touching his lips as well. "You did it. You're braver than you think." Anna found herself laughing softly at some of Luke's stories of life on the trails, and he, in turn, seemed to relax in her company, sharing tales he had not told anyone else. At one point, a sudden storm approached. Dark clouds rolled over the horizon, and the wind began to howl through the plains. Rain started as a light sprinkle, then quickly grew heavier, soaking their clothes and chilling them to the bone. The horses struggled with the slippery ground, and Anna's heart pounded with fear. "Stay close to me," Luke called over the roar of the wind. "We'll get through this together." The rain fell harder, blurring the landscape, but Luke's steady presence beside her gave her the courage to keep moving forward. She realized that fear was not something to be erased, but something to be faced with trust and determination. With each step, they made their way through the storm, their bond growing stronger with every shared challenge. By the time the storm passed, the sun had begun to peek through the clouds, casting a golden light across the wet plains. The air smelled fresh, clean, and alive. Anna shook the rain from her hair and smiled, feeling a sense of triumph and relief. Luke glanced at her, his eyes reflecting the same satisfaction. "See, nothing can stop us if we face it together," he said. The night began to fall as they approached a small grove near the edge of the plains. The trees offered shelter from the cold wind, and the soft ground made a suitable place to rest the horses. Anna dismounted carefully, her legs stiff from hours on horseback, and tended to the animals with Luke's guidance. The simple act of caring for the horses, feeding them and brushing off the rain, brought a sense of normalcy and peace after the tension of the day. As they settled near the trees, Luke began a small fire to provide warmth and light. Anna watched the flames flicker, casting dancing shadows on their faces. The crackling of the fire, the smell of burning wood, and the quiet companionship created a sense of calm that Anna had not felt in a long time. She realized that the journey was more than just physical, it was emotional, a test of courage, trust, and the willingness to open one's heart. Luke handed her a small piece of bread and a cup of water. "Eat something," he said kindly. "You'll need your strength for the journey tomorrow." She looked at Luke, noticing the weariness in his eyes, the lines etched by years on the trail, and felt a deep respect for the man who had arrived at just the right time in her life. They spoke quietly as the night grew darker, sharing stories of the people they had met along the trails, of hardships and joys, of moments of fear and courage. Anna found herself opening up in ways she had never done before, revealing dreams she had kept hidden, fears she had buried, and the longing for a life that felt safe and full of possibility. Luke listened with patience, never interrupting, never judging, simply allowing her words to flow freely. As the fire burned low, Anna realized how much she had changed since the moment she had been left at the stage stop. The fear that had gripped her heart, the sense of abandonment and despair, had begun to dissolve in the warmth of trust and companionship. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. She had discovered strength she had not known she possessed, and she had found hope in a world that had once seemed cruel and indifferent. Luke, too, seemed changed. The stoic cowboy who had appeared so strong and unshakable now seemed more human, more open, and more connected to another person than he had been in years. The shared journey, the challenges they had faced, and the trust they had built had created a bond that neither of them had expected but both silently cherished. As they prepared to rest for the night, Anna felt a sense of gratitude and peace. She knew that the journey was far from over, that challenges would continue to arise, but she also knew that she was no longer alone. With Luke by her side, she could face whatever lay ahead with courage, determination, and hope. The stage stop, the tears, and the fear were now part of her past, and the road before her held promise, adventure, and the possibility of new beginnings. As she lay under the canopy of stars, listening to the soft rustling of leaves and the distant call of an owl, Anna closed her eyes and allowed herself to rest. She thought of the day's journey, of the storm they had faced, of the small victories and moments of connection that had made her feel alive. She thought of Luke, of his unwavering presence, and of the trust that had grown between them. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, she allowed herself to believe that everything would be all right, that the path ahead, though uncertain, was one she could navigate with courage and hope. In the quiet of the night, with the fire's warmth fading into embers and the world around them still and calm, Anna realized a truth she had not known before, that even in the darkest moments, when it feels as if the world has abandoned you, help, hope, and friendship can appear when you least expect it. And sometimes that help comes in the form of a steady hand, a kind word, and the presence of someone who believes in you, even when you have stopped believing in yourself. The morning sun rose slowly, spilling warm light across the plains and illuminating the path ahead. Anna stretched, feeling the stiffness in her muscles from the journey, but also a quiet excitement that pulsed through her chest. Today, the town lay just beyond the rolling hills, and with it came not only safety and rest but also answers that had seemed so distant when she had been left alone at the stage stop. She felt a nervous anticipation, a mixture of hope and uncertainty as she prepared to continue the journey with Luke. Luke was already up, tending to the horses and ensuring they were fed and rested. His movements were calm and methodical, a reflection of years spent navigating the trails. When he noticed Anna awake, he offered a warm, reassuring smile. "Ready to head out?" he asked, his voice steady yet kind. Anna nodded, adjusting her bundle and mounting the horse carefully. "I think so," she replied, her voice filled with a mixture of determination and lingering nerves. She felt stronger than she had at the stage stop, stronger than during the storm or the long ride through rocky terrain. The challenges of the past days had shaped her courage, and though she still felt uncertainty about what lay ahead, she was ready to face it. As they rode, the town gradually came into view. Small buildings clustered together, their wooden facades catching the morning light. Smoke rose from chimneys, carrying the comforting scent of bread baking and wood fires. The sight filled Anna with a sense of relief she hadn't experienced in a long time. She realized how much she had longed for the simple presence of people, of life continuing in ordinary ways, and now it was finally within reach. Luke guided the horses down the final stretch, slowing them as they entered the town. Children ran past, playing in the dusty streets, and merchants called out from market stalls, advertising their goods. The town was bustling, alive with small joys and everyday life, a stark contrast to the loneliness of the stage stop. Anna felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of comfort, excitement, and gratitude. She had made it. She had survived the journey, faced her fears, and arrived at a place that promised not only rest but opportunity. As they approached the main street, Luke slowed and glanced at Anna. "We're here," he said simply. "This is your chance to start anew." She had wondered for days what awaited her beyond the stage stop, and now, standing at the edge of the town, she realized the truth of Luke's words. Everything she had endured, the tears, the fear, the waiting, had led her to this moment. She felt a swell of emotion, a mix of relief, hope, and gratitude. For the first time, the words "no more waiting" held real meaning, and she understood their depth. They dismounted, allowing the horses to rest in a small stable Luke had prepared for them. Anna ran her fingers along the soft mane of the horse, feeling the warmth and calm of the animal that had carried her through so much. Luke watched her silently for a moment, then offered a reassuring hand. "Come on," he said, "there's someone you should meet." "Anna," the woman exclaimed, rushing forward. She enveloped Anna in a warm embrace, and Anna felt tears prick at her eyes. It was a moment she had longed for, the reunion with someone who cared, someone who represented home, love, and safety. The woman stepped back, holding Anna's face gently in her hands. "You've come so far, my dear," she said. "I was beginning to worry about you." I just helped her along the way. She had been left at a stage stop in tears, unsure of what the world held for her, but now she was surrounded by safety, kindness, and a chance to begin again. Her journey had been long and difficult, but it had led her to a place of hope, trust, and new beginnings. The woman invited Anna inside, and Luke followed, carrying her bundle and helping her settle in. The house was warm and welcoming, filled with the comforting smell of fresh bread and the soft glow of sunlight filtering through the windows. Anna felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in days, a sense of belonging that reassured her that her journey had not been in vain. Over the next few hours, Anna and Luke shared stories with the woman, recounting the journey from the stage stop, the storm, the narrow paths, and the quiet conversations that had strengthened their bond. The woman listened with rapt attention, her eyes reflecting pride, relief, and admiration. She marveled at Anna's courage, the way she had faced fear and uncertainty with determination, and at Luke's unwavering support and kindness. As the day progressed, Anna began to feel a sense of clarity and purpose. She realized that the journey had not just been about reaching the town, it had been about discovering strength within herself, learning to trust others, and understanding the value of companionship and kindness. She looked at Luke, gratitude shining in her eyes. "I don't know how to thank you," she said softly. Luke shook his head, a small smile on his lips. "You don't need to thank me," he said. "You did this yourself. I was just here to help." As evening approached, the town began to settle into a peaceful rhythm. Children played in the streets, neighbors shared conversations over fences, and the warm glow of lamplight began to fill the cottages. Anna felt a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in a long time. She knew that the journey was far from over. There would still be challenges, decisions, and new experiences, but she also knew that she was no longer alone. Luke prepared to leave, knowing that his part in Anna's journey had reached a natural pause. He helped her gather a few belongings, ensured that she was comfortable, and offered a final word of encouragement. "Remember," he said, "no more waiting. You've come this far, and now it's time to move forward with courage and hope. You're stronger than you know." With that, he mounted his horse and rode away, disappearing into the horizon as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the town and plains. Anna watched him go, feeling a mix of emotions, gratitude, relief, and a deep sense of hope. She turned back toward the house, knowing that her life had changed forever. She had been left at the stage stop in tears, abandoned and uncertain, but now she had found safety, trust, and a new beginning. The words Luke had spoken echoed in her mind. No more waiting. The challenges of the past days had shaped her courage and resilience, and the journey had taught her the value of trust, companionship, and hope. She realized that the world, though sometimes harsh and uncertain, was also full of kindness, opportunity, and connection. And with that understanding, she felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, knowing that she would face the future with strength, courage, and an open heart. The stars twinkled above, casting a gentle light over the town and the plains beyond. Anna smiled softly, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the journey, for Luke, and for the chance to start anew. She knew that her story was far from over, but she also knew that she was no longer waiting. She had arrived, she had found hope, and she had discovered that even in the darkest moments, light could appear, sometimes in the form of a kind stranger, sometimes in the warmth of human connection, and sometimes within herself. As she settled into the comfort of the house, surrounded by warmth, safety, and love, Anna allowed herself to rest. The journey had been long, the challenges many, but she had emerged stronger, braver, and more hopeful than she had ever been. And in that quiet night, beneath the stars and the soft glow of lamplight, she knew one thing for certain. Her heart, once heavy with fear and tears, now carried the strength to embrace a new beginning, and she would never again have to wait for hope to find her. It was already within her grasp.